If you like this video, hit that like button. I'll truly appreciate it. If you're new to this channel, check out my previous content. Also hit that subscribe button. I got 3 videos dropping every week. D-Wade, let's talk about him. Dwyane Wade is going to be inducted to the Hall of Fame next weekend in the great class of 2023 alongside of Dirk Nowitzki, Pau Gasol, Tony Parker, Becky Hammon, and Greg Popovich. But let's start from the beginning. After 2 seasons at Marquette, Dwyane Wade declared for the 2003 NBA Draft. Coming into that draft, he was nowhere near as hyped as a Carmelo Anthony, who just led his team to the national championship in Syracuse. And of course, he was nowhere near as hyped as the chosen one, LeBron James. There was actually questions about Dwyane Wade going into the draft, like what position will he play. They thought he was a tweener, a little bit undersized for the 2 guard, but he definitely was a score first player, so they didn't view him as a true point guard back in that era. As we all know, he got drafted 5th overall to the Miami Heat. We had a good rookie campaign, nowhere near as good as LeBron and Carmelo, who I think should have won co-rookie of the years that year. But D-Wade had a good rookie campaign, put out 16 points per game. The Miami Heat made it to the playoffs. They won their first round series against the New Orleans Hornets, who were still in the East at that time. Baron Davis was on that team. It was a 7-game series. Then they lose the next series to that great defensive team in the Indiana Pacers with the Defensive Player of the Year, Ron Artest, who had his best season. By the way, that 03-04 season is statistically the most defensive year in NBA history. That's how D-Wade started his career. The following season, the Miami Heat made the blockbuster trade and bring in one Shaquille O'Neal. This coincided with Dwyane Wade taking that individual leap and becoming an elite player. D-Wade was already arguably a top 5 player only in year 2. Made 2nd team All NBA, 2nd team All Defense, 1st time All-Star, averaged 24 points per game in the regular season, increases facilitating, averaged slightly under 7 assists per game. In the playoffs, he increases scoring to 27 points per game. The Miami Heat went to the conference finals and lost to the defending champion Detroit Pistons in 7 games, but Dwyane Wade got hurt in game 5. He had to miss the whole game 6 and was hobbled in game 7, so who knows what would have happened if D-Wade stayed healthy. But anyway, they got redemption the next season, 2006 finals against the Dallas Mavericks. Dwyane Wade has a historic performance, has the best performance from any guard after Michael Jordan. Yes, that includes every single one of Kobe's performances in the finals. Yes, that includes all of Steph Curry's performances in the finals. Dwyane Wade averaged 35 points per game, which was over a third of the points that the Miami Heat team scored. This is a slow era. Dwyane Wade led the Heat from an 0-2 comeback. People forget in game 3, they were down about 15 points with about 6 minutes left. Dwyane Wade came back on a tear, scored 12 of the last 20 points in regulation and overtime to seal that victory. If they lose that game, they're going to lose the series. Dwyane Wade was very clutch that series. I know a lot of people say the refs bailed him out. At the end of the day, were there some phantom calls? Yes. Yes, there were. But mostly, a lot of the times the calls were happening because they just couldn't stay in front of Dwyane Wade. Like, he was really just getting by those defenders every time. They had no answer for him. Right? It truly was a Jordan-esque performance. Not second 3-peat Jordan, first 3-peat Jordan level performance. That's what Dwyane Wade did. And this performance from Dwyane Wade really raised the question, is Dwyane Wade the next best player? Of course, the NBA was marketing LeBron James from day one to be the next guy, the chosen one. But D-Wade was a surprise of that class, right? So he was the first one to really take over and show he's truly a superstar. He's the first one of that era, of that class, to become a superstar. Not only that, this affected Kobe Bryant tremendously. We all know the Shaq and Kobe situation. By the way, I got a video I'm working on about that. Y'all got to hear the truth about Shaq and Kobe. But Dwyane Wade went with an older Shaq who was nowhere near as great as he was on the Lakers. Really had people questioning Kobe even more. Like, hold on. This guy, Shaq, first year, they almost won. If D-Wade didn't get hurt, people think they possibly could have won. And in the next season, he puts up like mediocre stats and they still win. So it's like, whoa, Kobe, what are you really doing? So that had some ramifications on Kobe. And that's why Kobe started putting the fire on the Lakers organization, because there's no way he's just going to sit there and accept this. He knew what it was. But anyway, besides that, Dwyane Wade was really considered the next one up at that time. But unfortunately for him, the next 2 seasons, the Miami Heat did a whole bunch of nothing. He was injured. They didn't do anything in the playoffs. So his hype kind of died down. LeBron James made it to the finals the next season. So it got back to regular schedule program about who the next player is going to be in the NBA. But fast forward to the 2008 Olympics, the redeemed team, led by one Kobe Bryant, Dwyane Wade, LeBron James. They had to redeem the loss that the USA basketball team had in 2004 with a team with Tim Duncan, Allen Iverson, Stephon Marbury, and a young Melo and LeBron and Wade who really didn't get any minutes. Dwyane Wade was probably the best player on the team in that Olympics. Took a humble role. Something we're going to see is part of his character and his role in the NBA. But he took a step back for one LeBron James and Kobe Bryant coming off the bench, but he did lead them in scoring, very impactful on both sides of the court. He comes back into the league the next season, the 08-09 season. Dwyane Wade has his best individual season, leads the NBA in scoring. Many believe he should have won MVP that season.
Dwyane is a phenomenon. If he's not talked in terms of the MVP, then I think they're really not giving it a fair assessment of the MVP. I think no matter what you can say about his team, you take him away from his team, I'm pretty sure they would not be as successful. As you take away LeBron and you take away Kobe, I'm pretty sure those teams will still be competitive. Not to speak down on his teammates, just in terms of how much he represents offensively and defensively on that team and the leadership, So that, for whatever reason, never goes into consideration of the MVP. And I think, that should have some real hardcore understandings that, this kid each and every day, if he's not playing, they don't have a chance to win. And then when he does, then they can beat anybody on the basketball court.
The only thing, the problem with this is in the 09 playoffs, they lost in 7 games to Atlanta Hawks. And he got outplayed by one Joe Johnson, ISO Joe, in Game 7. That's a knock to Dwyane Wade. That's a knock. We don't talk about that. But losing in a first round 7-game series, in my opinion, I've always thought this, right? If you are that guy, if you're the best player on the court, when it comes to a 7-game series, in Game 7, I don't care if your team's not more talented. I don't care what it is. You got to get it done. I look at Game 7s as you got to get it done. It is what it is, because one player can truly impact the game. So that's a knock on him for that season. Look, a lot of people thought he was the MVP, and not only that, the talks of is Dwyane Wade the best player in the NBA. It never subsided. After 06, it was always there. But one thing I noticed, look, the NBA and the media, the way they market things, Dwyane Wade truly wasn't chosen. Once the NBA got over the Kobe Bryant off the court issue, he was getting put back there, and he was playing great, and he was winning, and LeBron James was the chosen one. So those two were getting marketed. We remember the puppet commercials, but D-Wade was right there with them. If you look at their game, you look at their numbers, and really their success from 06 through 09 is pretty much even between those three. D-Wade was right there with Kobe and Braun. I will argue he was better than Braun until about 09, and that's when Braun took that extra leap. Then I'll probably say I'll lean a little bit to LeBron, but it was still close. Because if you look at Dwyane Wade's game compared to those two, he was a better slasher to the rim than Kobe Bryant. During that tenure, I think he was a better defender than LeBron James, right? he was the best. He was definitely the best shot blocker out of all of them, even though he was the shortest one out of them. I mean, we all know Dwyane Wade is one of the best shot blocking guards. He might be the best. It's between him and Michael Jordan. It's a two-man race. And if you also talk about the pick and roll game, Dwyane Wade ball handling in the pick and roll was better than Kobe's and LeBron's at the time. If you look at the numbers, Dwyane Wade was averaging more assists than LeBron James in the 2000s. Right, until 2009, and that's when LeBron took over. But Dwyane Wade was a great facilitator. Like I said, coming into his NBA career, he kind of was seen as a tweener, and he was playing a lot of that point guard role. And his way of dissecting defenses with the pick and roll game, splitting double teams, getting to the basket, his mid-range shot, it wasn't the greatest, but it was pretty good. It was definitely better than LeBron's. It wasn't on the Kobe Bryant's level. He was the worst shooter out of the three from the three-point line, but still overall he was able to get buckets. He scored at the same level as them, pretty much in the same efficiency as them. Defensively, if I was to rank it, I think him and Kobe were real close at that time. Slight edge to Kobe for his on-ball defense, but playing the passing lanes, the steals, the blocks, I'll give it to D Wade. LeBron came along a little bit later on the defensive end. So that concludes the 2000s for Dwyane Wade. Going to 2010, you still seen pretty much the same thing. Great individual season, just didn't have the adequate team. Lost to the Boston Celtics in round one. It really wasn't a competition. Then the decision happens. Two of the top three players in the NBA, LeBron and D Wade, alongside the top 15 player and Chris Bosh, team up together. There's a lot of revisionist history from super LeBron fans trying to say that when they first teamed up, D Wade still wasn't the same D Wade as before. Stop the nonsense. He was still in his prime. He still was at his peak when they first joined together. Now that season, it was a lot of debate about whose team it was. I think the media was kind of concoct some drama just for the ratings about who's the Batman of the team. But at points it did seem like they weren't trying to step on each other's toes. But ultimately by the playoffs they kind of figured it out. They rolled through the Eastern Conference. They only went 5 games against every single team. They beat the Boston Celtics that LeBron couldn't get over the hump over, or same with Dwyane Wade, he just lost it in the previous season. They beat them in 5 games. I know it's some notion and some belief that the Miami Heat finally beat the Boston Celtics in 2012 when LeBron had that historic performance. No, they got over Boston quick. As soon as they got together, they were better than Boston. It was never, ever a debate after that. As we all know, in the finals, Dwyane Wade did his part, 27 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. LeBron, I can't say the same. So going into that offseason, Dwyane Wade, I guess, had a talk with LeBron James, said you have to be the best player on the team for us to really win. You have to be the driving force, the engine. So D Wade took a step back. And we all know they won a couple championships. D Wade kept him taking a step back. This season in 2014, it concluded their tenure, their era. And Dwyane Wade, let me tell you something right now. In 2014, Dwyane Wade looked terrible throughout the whole season. He did not look good at all. His game wasn't the same. He wasn't as sharp. Physically, he didn't look the same. He didn't even look as interested in the game of basketball. Like the tenure between him, Braun, and Bosh, it just ran its course. So we all know LeBron James left. D Wade seemed more motivated, got back in shape, looked healthier. He had a little resurgence. He had a pretty good playoff run in 2016. We thought that we were going to finally see D Wade versus LeBron in the playoffs. Unfortunately, they couldn't get past the Toronto Raptors. That offseason, Dwyane Wade wants to re-sign with the Miami Heat, but he wasn't happy with the money that Pat Riley offered to him. Pat Riley is cold. He cold. He said he's not giving him that legacy money. It's what can you do for me now? It's not what did you do for me. We know it's Wade County, but what can you do for me now? Remember, they gave a lot of money to Whiteside. Remember that. So Dwyane Wade's ego got hit. His pride was on the line. He decided to leave. He went to his hometown team in Chicago, played with Jimmy Butler and Rajon Rondo. They were decent. They had a decent season, nothing spectacular. Eventually he goes to Cleveland, which I think everybody knows is a mistake. That was just a terrible season across all ends. Finally, he goes back to Miami where he concludes his career where he should have never left. I wish Dwyane Wade was one of the lifers, like a Kobe or Tim Duncan or Dirk Nowitzki, but it is what it is. Ultimately, Dwyane Wade, I believe, is one of the most underrated players in NBA history. At his peak, he's right there with anybody. You're hearing people now say James Harden is better than Dwyane Wade. And by the way, I've been hearing that for years. People say James Harden's better than Dwyane Wade. I'll put it like this. Dwyane Wade is closer to Michael Jordan than James Harden is to Dwyane Wade. If you like this video, hit that like button, comment, subscribe. I got more coming soon.